All right, well, welcome again to the Weight Connection Seminar. We're actually going to study in this presentation the weight of the hormones, part 2. Okay, and as a reminder to all that these seminars are for educational purposes and they're not actually a prescription for individuals. Okay, so consult with your practitioner, and one of those practitioners can be myself. We are available internationally through video conference. You just need to go through our website and book an appointment. Just remember, when you book an appointment, if you're booking an appointment at 8:30 in the morning, which is the first appointment available, 8:30 in the morning, is 8:30 morning Melbourne time. Okay, that might actually be a different time for you. So just bear in mind that I'm not going to be at 4 o'clock in the morning doing an appointment with you. So just bear in mind it's Melbourne time. So in our website, we actually have a link there that you can actually click and find out what is the hour difference between you and me. And we will just, you just fill up the details for the booking, you complete the booking, and in that booking, there's a section there to give us your Skype address. We'll send you an invitation through Skype, and on that time and hour and day, that in some cases, depending on where you are in the world, you might actually be a day prior to me, okay? Because Australia is the day starts in Australia and then it continues on to the rest of the world. So just bear in mind of that, okay? See, Australians are very self-centered. See? Are Canadians the same or not? Canadians are not, yeah, very much more humble, yeah. Okay, so just recapping and advancing, okay? We gave you two individuals here, individual number A and individual number B. And individual number A starts breakfast at 8 and finishes finishes his dinner at 8 o'clock, which means that he has an eating window of 12 hours. Now, I have actually put 8 o'clock there as an hour for breakfast, but if the person starts the breakfast at 9 and he has a 12-hour window, what time is the dinner finishing? 9. Okay, 9 to 9. If he has breakfast at 10, it finishes at 10. Okay? So the same as person number B. He starts breakfast at 8 and finishes the dinner at 4. But if he has the breakfast at 10 o'clock in the morning, what time is his dinner? 6. Okay? So the emphasis is not so much on the time factor like 8 o'clock a.m., but rather on the bracket or window of eating, okay? Now this is just an example. This is what we call the 8-16 protocol. In this presentation, I'll bring other examples that will work also. But this is actually an example that we use in certain cases. And basically what we were talking about was, in the previous presentation, was about two types of hormones. One was insulin that we nicknamed the witch, and we also another one which was called glucagon that we renamed the wimp. Okay, so the wimp will not appear until the witch is disappearing, but the witch can be tramping around and around and around, especially the person has metabolism of insulin that is very, very poor, that just happens to be common in people that cannot lose weight. And that can actually be something that your metabolism has changed over time. Maybe when you were at a certain age, you were more efficient in your insulin, and then later on, after you have your children, or after you have the menopause, or after you turn 40 for males, etc., etc. So that can actually change. That doesn't mean that you're born with a particular metabolism and that you are stuck with that metabolism all throughout your life. It doesn't work that way. Okay? It's very common, for instance, we hear stories of people that have lost 14 kilos and they were not even trying. They lost 14 kilos not even trying, and then you ask what's happening. They're getting worried because they're thinking cancer. I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm losing weight, and I'm losing very rapidly. And then you start inquiring, they lost the house, they lost the job, they lost the wife, they lost the children, and all of a sudden, there's a metabolism shift because of the thyroid is just going crazy, and he's just burning fat like there's no tomorrow because he's in the middle of a crisis. Okay? So there is instances in which your metabolism changes. I remember my mom, when my father left us, you know, she always struggled with weight when he left us. For the next year, you know, she went down to 60 kilos, just like that, not even trying. But it was more to do with the crisis that she was involved in. Okay? And then she regained that weight and more. And this is actually a common picture among certain ladies that have gone through that type of scenario. They lose the weight very, very quickly because of the crisis, and then they gain it and even more. Okay? So, what happens is that the wimp, in normal circumstances, if we haven't eaten too much dinner and so on, in normal circumstances, will appear when? At the 13th hour of fasting. Okay? So, in the case, in the scenario that we brought to you in previous lecture, scenario number A, he has an eating window of 12 hours. That makes a fasting window of 12 hours. So in normal circumstances, the wimp glucagon is not coming up. That person is not burning fat. So if that person is an individual that needs to lose weight, he is going to find it very, very difficult to lose weight. Okay? However, in this case, if the person eats breakfast at 8 and finishes by 4, and there are other scenarios, and I'll explain it in this presentation, and he doesn't eat again until 8 o'clock in the morning, that makes a fasting window of 16 hours, which means that for the last 3 hours before breakfast, that person has been doing what? Burning fat to keep the sugar levels steady. And that's snoring. How much energy do you need to do snoring? Not much. Now imagine now in that time that rather than do snoring, you actually get up, drink some water, get the dog, and go for a walk. Do you need more energy now? Now you need more energy, and now where are you going to get the energy? Insulin is not there because you haven't eaten any breakfast. So for the storage, so glucagon is going to go, whoa, hold on a second, this person is actually eating more. Sorry, it needs more energy, so I'm going to get more energy from where I know I can get it. Now, I want you to notice something. Each molecule of glucose gives you 2 ATP. ATP is the unit of energy in the cell. That's actually the unit of energy. 2 ATP. Each molecule of fat gives you 4 ATPs. Double the energy because you're getting a different type of fuel for it. You're using fat. Now, in the old days, when you were running a marathon, preparing for a marathon, you will eat a lot of pasta at night. What will that do to your insulin? Pasta with potato, with bread, with lots, because you're going to run a marathon, right? So what happens is in the morning, you're left with no glucose because all has been poured into the cell, but your insulin is very, very high. So now, where are you going to get your energy from? You can't get it from your fat because glucagon, the wimp, is not going to appear. Insulin is still very high. So you start running the marathon, and in 5 minutes, the first 5 kilometers, there are the what do you call it? The lollies. We call it lollies in Australia. Lollipops, sugary things. Candy. You call it candy. Yeah. So you have to put it in your mouth. Why? Because that is more sugar, and you run the entire marathon with make sure that you're getting candy or lollies or something sweet and sugary in the mouth. Now, we don't run marathons that way. The person for the week prior starts working on glucagon. Okay, starts working on glucagon by reducing the insulin output of the foods that he is consuming and introduces more nut butters, for instance. This is in a marathon context, okay? More nut butters and things like that. Or the Ironman. Have you heard of the Ironman? Australia is very big in Ironman. This is when you swim 5 kilometers, cycle 180 kilometers, and then you run a marathon all in one day. All in one day. How are you going to get so much energy? So they start running their metabolism on glucagon. And they actually have nut butters, coconut oils, and things like that, things that are fat, because when that finishes, the glucagon is giving them 4 ATPs rather than 2, and when they're running out of it, and they need that extra push to finish the race, they do have reservoirs here to give them that push. And they run that push, and that's why lately all the Ironman records have been broken. Because they're not running on glucagons in the last part of the race. They're not running on insulin, they're running on glucose, they're running on fat and glucagon. You following? Okay, now, do you know that there is no one in the world that misses breakfast? No one. Now you say, no, I know somebody that doesn't have breakfast. The first meal of the day is at 11 o'clock in the morning. Guess what? That's the meal that breaks the fast. Break fast, breaking the fast. If you don't have breakfast ever, you die eventually. Because that means that you have no meal breaking the fast. So you ate something and you fasting until you die. Now, some people have breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning, other people have breakfast at 9 o'clock in the morning, other people have breakfast at 10, etc., etc. But everybody has to break the fast. In Spanish, we call it desayuno. Des and do, ayuno, the fast, and do the fast. Exactly the same thing, okay? Now, so let's put that as an example. 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., okay? The orange area there, before the breakfast, is the area where you're actually burning most of your fat because glucagon is nice and awake. That is the ideal area to do exercise. Now, by saying that, I don't mean that you ought not to do exercise any other time of the day. But in terms of maximizing your fat burning, you do your exercise there. That's when you get your dog and you go and walk the dog before breakfast. So what is breakfast? Anything that contains glucose that will stop the fast. I get up in the morning, I ask people, say, when is your breakfast? About 8. Okay, and when is your dinner? About 6. I said, okay. And you're not losing weight? I said, no. Okay, so that's 10 hours. That should actually give you some time for glucagon to appear, because you got the 10-hour eating window and the 14-hour eating window. So I said, okay, tell me, you get up in the morning, you drink some water. I said, yep, I get up in the morning at 5, drink some water, I make my juice, and I take my juice, and then I go and walk the dog, and then I have breakfast at 8. What time was the breakfast?
6.
When he had the juice. When he had the juice, that was the breakfast. Why? Because the juice contained glucose, and insulin, the which will appear there. He meant breakfast, porridge, etc., at 8. Not the juice or orange juice in the morning. Now, another scenario. I don't have anything to eat until 9 o'clock in the morning. All right. So you get up in the morning, you drink some water. So, yeah, just have a coffee. And say, okay, what do you put in the coffee? Sugar, and what else? Milk. Milk contains lactose. Lactose is carbohydrates from the milk. Glucose will rise. Sugar in the coffee, glucose will rise. What time is the breakfast from a metabolic point of view? 5 o'clock in the morning, not 9. Are you catching what I'm saying? Okay, how much glucose is risen by water? 0. How much glucose is risen by a herbal tea without sweetener? 0. So outside of that window, and also within the window, of course, you can drink water or herbal tea, etc. That won't rise your insulin. But if you just get in the morning and get the most organic, biodynamic carrot juice, that's your breakfast. And if it's at 5 o'clock in the morning, that's your breakfast. Now, I had a scenario. One lady was not losing weight. The dinner was at 5, and she was actually eating, she was on 10-16 protocol. She was a much elderly lady, but she needed to lose some weight. You know, the osteoarthritis was really, really damaging the knees and so on. She really needed to lose the weight. So the breakfast was at 7 o'clock in the morning, and the dinner had to finish by 5. So it's the bracket, within the bracket. And she was not losing weight. And I'm thinking, what time is your breakfast? And she goes, it's 7, Oscar. Said, what time is your dinner? And I said, it's 5. And I couldn't work it out. 5, she started the dinner. At 6 o'clock was the 6 o'clock news. And she continued with the dinner. At 7 was the American comedy, whatever it is in there. And she had the chips and things like that. And it's comfort food. Now, she didn't finish until 8:30 or 9. She started at 5, but she didn't finish until 9. Okay? And then we have those after dinner snacks. That's when, you know, you start working like as a detective, you know? What time is your dinner? 6. I finished at 6. I say, okay. And then you go to bed. You say, I go to bed. Yep, no problem. And then, that's it. I finished my dinner. I say, okay. Do you have any after dinner snacks? I say, I go to bed. My husband comes home at 12. 12 at night. I say, yep. And then, well, I wake up. We want to catch up. What's happened with the day or whatever. And then I get up. I just eat just a little, tiny, little. So now all of a sudden she's on a 16 or 18 hours eating window. I was in Spain. We finished many of the programs at 9:30 at night. Then the people will come and ask you questions. So that made it 10. Then it was an hour to take me to the place where I was staying. It was 11. And at 11 o'clock, they started putting the tablecloth on the table and putting plates around the table. And I said, what are you doing? And they said, let's go to have some dinner. That is typical in Spain. You know, maybe not at 11, but at 10 o'clock dinner, that is normal. And 6 o'clock coffee with milk and a biscuit in the morning. So they got the 8:16 backwards. The opposite. So you have the 8:16, which means 8 hours eating window, and in 16 hours fasting window. Now that works very well if you are a youngster, if you are a 40 years old man, etc. If you are a woman and you know yourself and you just tend to have upside down issues with emotions and things like that, maybe at 10-14 protocol will be a much better option for you to easy yourself and easy all around you, those around you. Okay? We don't want you to kill anybody just because you are in the process of losing weight. Okay? So at 10-14 will still allow you an hour and a bit, depending on what you're eating at night, of glucagon. That's the hour for the exercise. That will actually be. You will lose weight. It's just that you're not going to go losing weight that rapidly, but you will lose weight. And the thing is, it's doable for you. Okay? So at 8:16, there are some individuals that have 8:16, no problem. I normally tell the story, for instance, for those that are, if we had some Jewish people in the presentation, I'll just use, for instance, a case from the Jewish background. When you have a temple, they had a temple back then in the day, and they had priests, and the priest will eat of the sacrifice, and the priest was meant to eat of the sacrifice after the sacrifice will come. So the first sacrifice was at 9 o'clock in the morning. They call it the third hour. And the last sacrifice was at 9 o'clock, at 9 o'clock in the afternoon, which is actually 3 o'clock. So technically it was from 9 in the morning to 3. So they will eat the sacrifice, let's say 9:30, and they will finish their dinner, let's say 4:30. Wow, how many hours of eating window? It's about 6 to 7 hours. And everything else, they're just burning fat. The thing is that our body is designed for a daily detox. Daily detox. And guess who is responsible for the daily detox? Glucagon. Because glucagon thinks the following. Okay, I need energy for those 3 hours. I need energy. Let's go to get it there from the pizza that he ate 5 months ago. It's right there between the 4th and the 5th rib, okay? As glucagon is sending his troops up there, some of them stopped and he looks at a cell. One of the cells there, it looks very funny. And he asks the cell, you don't look good. Yeah, I don't feel good. He said, you don't look like your sisters. He said, yeah, I don't know. I feel awkward and I look awkward. I'm very, very different. We don't want a deficient or a malfunctioning cell to have time to do what? Reproduce. And reproduce and reproduce and reproduce, because the same error will now be reproduced. So now they go, because you don't look good and you're not going to be able to do the functioning that you are designed to do, we are going to dismantle it. They dismantle that and they go, where are we putting all these dismantling things? Whatever is recycled, the body will recycle. Whatever is not recycled, it will go to the oven. Gets burned for energy. Oh, there you go, clean up. As it's going up there, whoa, look at this. Glucagon is going around with all the army. Look at all this. What a whole layer of cholesterol here that is narrowing this artery. We can hardly go through. Get something of this for burning. It's just to, guess what? It's cleaning out the arteries. Any debris, any bacteria or viruses that are wandering around, glucagon says, look, I'm going to get that pizza over there, but while I'm at it, get this fella here. It looks ugly and I don't know what it is. Dismantle it. What we can recycle, recycle, and what we cannot recycle, burn it. The body is actually designed to have a cleanup absolutely every single day. And one of the hormones responsible for that is glucagon. And for many people, glucagon has not appeared in the last 20 years. Guess what gets accumulated? Toxins. And then we read a book, we see a video, let's go to do a detox, and I'm sick as a dog. Because the 20 years accumulated toxins now are going flashing through the liver, and the liver says, you're very funny, you haven't actually sent us anything. Here, for 20 years, the only thing that you have sent us is more accumulated fat. Now I'm actually slow in the processing, and now you're sending us all these full wheelbarrows of toxins. So the liver goes and spits the dummy, and he goes, to the main circulation. There you go. It goes to the main circulation. You end up with a headache. You're sick. You got all the flu symptoms. What are you doing? I'm just detoxing. Choose. The body actually is designed to keep you up to date on a tune-up every 24 hours. Okay, so there's actually a number of sections there after eating. Okay? There's actually a number of sections there after eating. If I eat, let's say I eat a big plate, and then I sit down in front of the computer, what am I saying to my metabolism with those two instructions? I ate lots and I sat down. I'm saying the following. Tomorrow is the Third World War, and I'm not going to eat perhaps for an entire month. That's why I'm eating this much, and I need to actually reserve my energy. That's why I'm sitting down. So the metabolism says, oh, wow, have you heard? Tomorrow is the Third World War. We are going into the concentration camp tomorrow. That's why this fella has eaten this much and is saving energy by sitting down. Let's go to follow orders here. Glucose is high, insulin is even higher. Let's go to keep it, and let's go to store it. We are sending that message to the metabolism. The metabolism pays attention and keeps it. Okay? Now, it is when I get up and I eat a reasonable portion, and we'll talk about portion in the next, possibly in the next lecture, okay? But when I eat a reasonable portion, and then I get up and start moving, I'm sending this message to my metabolism. He is eating with confidence. Confidence that he is going to eat lighter. That's why he's not eating a lot. He's just eating reasonably because he knows he's confident. It's confident that he's going to eat later on. And now he wants me to use that energy for what? Because he's moving, because he has things to do. Are you following? So there is a number of switches that get turned on and turned off depending on how we eat and the way we eat. Now, let's go to follow up in different scenarios. Now, scenario number A is what we said in the beginning. 8 to 8, 12 hours eating window. How many calories? 2,500. Now notice that the next one, because something has changed. Scenario number B, or scenario B, as you say, is from 8 to 4. So all right, we got the hours, no problem. How many calories? 3,200. And the person says, I'm not losing weight. In fact, I'm putting on weight. Why? He's eating more. He's eating more. I actually have patients that have actually organized their movie theater session because they wanted to get a jumbo bumbo full of popcorn and Coke, so insulin, and a donut, but they cannot go to that late session over there because that's outside my window. We need to go to the earlier session so I can eat it because I'm eating it in my window. Can you see how deceitful the mind can be? So now he's actually thinking that the window is going to solve all the issues while he himself now is just letting rampant all his desires and whatever he knows that before he couldn't eat, he's eating now. Are you catching what I'm saying? So the window is not an excuse to now load yourself double. It's actually eat what you're eating, but within that window, either a 10-14 or a 8-16 window. So a 10-14 means that if you have breakfast at 8, you're finishing dinner by what time? 6 o'clock. That makes it 10 hours. Okay? And you do the exercise in the morning just with the water. So careful with this one because some people fall into this trap. They eat in the window and they eat double of what they know. The portions, they push the window too far and then they're so hungry that, I can't, okay, window. And they eat too much. Okay? Now, there are certain things that will release insulin more than others. And what I need you to do is, I need you to do a test. I'm going to do to you a test. Okay? I'm going to just say to you a number of items, and you tell me if those items are either protein, fat, or carbohydrates. And we are going to actually distinguish those by whatever is the highest percentage in that item. For instance, if I say avocado, well, this is going to be carbohydrates here, this is going to be fat here, this is going to be protein here. All right? So if I say avocado, where would I go? Fat. Why? Doesn't avocado have protein? Yes, it does. And it has a little bit of carbohydrates, but it has 70% of fat. So the highest percentage is fat, so we'll name it here. So avocado is a fruit, but we're not grouping it in that sense. We're grouping it according to the percentage of the macronutrients. We call those macronutrients. You following? Okay, so if I say bread, carbohydrates, okay? So carbohydrates will actually release more insulin, okay? If I say almonds, fat. Now, do they have protein? Do almonds have protein? Sure, but they have a higher percentage of fat. So we are putting it in fat. Now, this is going to be interesting. Lentils. Okay, raise your hand if you think protein. Okay, I'm just going to tell you, depending on the variety of lentils, you end up with between 14% to 19% of protein. 19%, that means that there's something else bigger than 19% to fill up the 100%, and they don't have much fat. Carbohydrates. They actually carbohydrates. Chickpeas. And why are not moving if you said protein? I'm saving energy. They actually have between 14% and 20% protein depending on the type. Kidney beans. If you're saying protein, why am I not moving? The highest percentage is carbohydrates. Fruit. Carbohydrates. Vegetables. Carbohydrates. Potato. Carbohydrates. Rice. Carbohydrates. Soybean. Protein is the only bean that actually has a higher percentage. So, is soybean good for you or bad? It is good unless it is bad for you. Did you catch that? There's actually people that regain health when the soy is removed. And there's others that will actually do very, very well with the soy. So soy is good unless it is bad for you. Ultimately, it depends with you as an individual. Okay, so if I go hemp seed. How many here haven't heard of hemp seed? Okay, hemp seed. Fat. Hemp seed is a great source of omega-3 fatty acids. Do they have protein? Yes. Do they have complete protein? Yes. But the highest percentage is fat. Okay, egg. Fat. Yep. Does egg have protein? Yes. But the highest percentage is fat. So we stay here. Okay? Now, butter. Fat. Okay. All right. You got that one, right? Okay. Salmon. Just like that. Salmon is just like that. Okay. What about a steak? Steak is protein. Okay. So we got the soy here. We got the steak. Now, there is something called free carbohydrates, okay? Let me explain. Because here we put bread, but here we put rice, here we actually put fruit, and here we put vegetables. And carbohydrates are the ones that will release the most insulin. But free carbohydrates are based on the ratio of fiber versus carbohydrate. For instance, if you get white bread, you have a lot of carbohydrates, hold on, there, very little fiber. Okay, so let's say that fiber. So what is the type of carbohydrates that are going to rise your insulin? The type of carbohydrates that is going to rise your insulin is that level of carbohydrates minus the fiber. Minus the fiber. So white bread is one of the ones that will shoot up your insulin level like there's no tomorrow. Okay? Bread. Okay, the difference between white bread and wholemeal bread. Not much. In terms of insulin, not much. The difference between wheat bread and spelt bread in terms of insulin, not much. The difference between rice and barley in terms of insulin, not much. The difference between potato and white bread, definitely not much. Not much. Now, this is when it starts getting a bit tricky. Fruit has, depending on the type of fruit, for instance, you got blueberries, you got apples, you got watermelon. Okay? So, depending on the type of fruit, you'll have also equivalent of fiber. So fruit, in general terms, you still get a quite nice high of insulin with fruit, the average fruit. There's fruits that have less than others, okay? The blueberries, for instance, I'll give you an example. Blueberries up to here, a strawberry up to there. They're both berries, but they're different, okay? So what's the thing? You got fructose from the fruit, and you got the fiber from the fruit. You still get a big chunk left that will rise your insulin levels. Vegetables, on the other hand, they got a nice carbohydrate level, reasonable carbohydrate level, and good fibrous element on it. Vegetables, they don't rise so much your insulin level. So when people are actually on those low carbohydrate diets, what are they on? They are on steak, egg, steak. Don't touch anything from that group because that will be carbohydrate. Depending on what you get from that group, because you can actually get vegetables from this group, excluding, of course, potato. Potato is not in the group of vegetables. It's just something else. Okay? Excluding potato, sweet potato, parsnip, and turnip, excluding those ones, all the other vegetables, to a degree, they are very reasonable on the carbohydrate level and on the fibrous element of it. So your rise of insulin is very low. Though they are carbohydrates, and they are on the carbohydrate section here, the rise is not that high. So a person doesn't have to be on a low carbohydrate level. They can actually be on a reasonable carbohydrate level, eating plenty of vegetables. Okay? Let me just illustrate further here. All right. I'm just going to give you two pyramids here. I'm going to ask the question, maybe you actually, have you ever heard of a group of people called vegetarians? They are not easy to find. They are not easy to find. I am a vegetarian myself. I don't impose it upon anybody, okay? I don't impose it on anybody, and I do a fair presentation of nutrition in my lectures, okay? But personally, in my house, I'm a vegetarian. But in my experience as a vegetarian for many years, I have found that it is very, very difficult to find vegetarians in this world. You're thinking, no, I know many. Think again. Are you sure they're vegetarians? Now, those are pyramids there. I'm going to put the pyramid, at the base of the pyramid, I'm going to put potatoes, rice, breads, pasta, crackers, healthy cakes. Do you know any vegetarian, or do you know plenty of carbotarians? Or granitarians? Maybe you know a lot of granitarians out there. You understand what I mean by granitarians? Or carbohydrates? There are plenty of them. Plenty of them. Now compare that one to that one. Now that's vegetable-based or plant-based. which means, in my head, means the following. That at the base of your pyramid, is plenty of vegetables. At the base. I'm not even telling you what you're going to put at the top of the pyramid. Because you can actually be a vegetarian plant-based, or you can be a non-vegetarian plant-based. All has to do with what? With your base. What is your base? What is at your base? Now, just looking at the base, let's going to use only plant things in this pyramid here, the yellow one, only plant. And we're going to make it a person that only eats from plants. So we get the potato, rice, bread, pasta, crackers, healthy cakes, etc. Then we put legumes on top. Where were the legumes? On this section here. Okay? And then for a dessert, we're going to eat fruit. Okay. Based on what you already know, how difficult it's going to be for that person to lose weight. Extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. Now, let's going to put something on top there. Before that, besides that, we're going to put a burger, and then we're going to put, so we got that. We got a burger, a meat burger, and then we have ice cream and a Coke. It is the meat in the middle that is putting that person with extra weight. Is that right? Is it the meat in the middle? No. Is the soft drink at the top and all that large category there at the base. How many of you know what haystacks are? How many of you have heard of haystacks? Okay, haystacks are like a hybrid of nachos. You realize that in Mexico they don't eat nachos. That is a U.S. invention, right? But haystacks, I want you to notice, we are just going to, for those that don't know what haystacks are, I'll explain it. But we are going to use haystacks as a way of introducing to your mind a pyramid. So, you get the plate. What are you going to put at the base of that plate? Corn chips. Okay, corn chips. What are you putting in the middle? Beans. And what do you sprinkle at the top? Okay, all right, cheese. All right, I was just going to mention salad. Okay, you sprinkle salad. So that's a haystack. A haystack actually has a salad on top rather than just grill the cheese like a nacho. So it has like sprinkled salad. So you sprinkle the salad, so it ends up like a pyramid. You notice? It's a pyramid. You want to lose weight? Tip the haystack upside down. What does that mean? Plenty of salad or vegetables, whatever, at the base of your plate. You put the beans or the chili con carne or whatever you put in there in the middle, and then you get a couple of corn chips and you do like the bullfighting in Spain. Boom! And you put a couple of corn chips right on the top. Did I take the corn chips away? No, I didn't. I just put it in the right place for losing weight. I just put it in the right place to lose weight. Did you get that? Because the vegetables at the bottom are going to restore your glycogen reservoirs in your muscles, so your muscles are not going to get tired, because that's what happens on a zero carbohydrate diet. Those bodybuilders, they are there, they get into the gym, they get into the low carbohydrates, they're working, they're moving 70 kilos, they're moving 80 kilos, they're moving 90 kilos, and then 3 months later, they cannot improve anymore, and they're dropping down to 80 and they're dropping down to 75, because there's something called glycogen that has been exhausted from the muscle, because you're not giving them any carbohydrates. In this case, you're giving them carbohydrates, but from a healthy source. Can you see now why it's so difficult to find vegetarians? I try to find them. Sometimes it's very difficult to find them. Okay. Is this clear? Okay. Does that make sense now that if it is your last meal of the day, you're not going to have fruit salad? Why not? Because you are actually going to pour a lot of fructose there. It's amazing. people sit in front of me and say, what do you have for breakfast? I just have a smoothie. What do you put in the smoothie? Normally put 2 bananas, a couple berries, some blueberries, a kiwi, and then they list like 5 or 6, 7. Now, I can have that. Why? Because I don't need to lose weight. But if you remember, in the context of losing weight, choose one fruit. If you're going to have a smoothie in the morning, choose one fruit and use that fruit. You don't need all the fruits in the garden for that smoothie, because it's going to give you a high, tremendous high. We actually have recipes for smoothies in which we also use like avocado to give it a more creamy thing. We introduce, for instance, some protein powders to actually reduce the GI outload and so on. Okay, we'll mention a few things about that. Now, can you see between these two why people are gaining weight? This is the average pyramid, both for those that eat meat and for those that don't eat meat. Because if you eat meat and you eat in a burger, you have a whole bun at the bottom, and then you have whatever in the middle and another one at the top. Have you heard of open sandwiches? What is an open sandwich? Take the top off. Okay? Fill it up with more vegetables. We'll give you more ideas later. Okay? Now, I'm going to introduce you to the cousin of the witch. In English, doesn't sound that dramatic. We call it cortisol. And it's a cortisol, I don't know, is that a male or female name? So I'll give you the Spanish name, cortisona. Is that a male or female? Female, okay? So it's the cousin of the witch. What is cortisone? Cortisone is actually, this cousin of the witch can work for you if you work for her, okay? Cortisone is the one that allows you to be alert. Every time that you are awake, you have a certain level of cortisone. Okay, when you are in the car, your cortisol rises. When you are productive in the morning, your cortisol is still high. And then as you start unwinding through the day, your cortisol starts going down, 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 until of course you always, as everybody does, it goes early to bed, you turn off the computer way before that, you unwind, you talk to your wife, you just dim down the light and you fall asleep, let's say by 9, 10, as everybody does. Okay, so cortisone keeps you alert. It gives you an energy, a rush of energy through cortisone and another cousin of them, adrenaline. Adrenaline, another cousin, from the witch. Now, cortisone and adrenaline, they will move you even when you didn't have energy. There's a lot of people that go to work with no energy whatsoever just because they're running on cortisone and adrenaline. I remember the story in my hometown, because we have the running of the bulls. You heard of the running of the bulls? Okay, there is one major place called Pamplona, but every town has it. My town, 26,000 people in the town, we had it, so we run the bulls on the streets. And I remember, so once they close up the street, if you are in, you are in. And the drunkard of the town, his name was Aquilino. Sorry, Langarica. Langarica was his name. And somehow he found himself inside. The guy was drunk as anything. He was dragging his feet. He was drunk. And everybody started getting worried because soon they were going to release the bulls. When they released the bulls, that man that could not sustain himself started running like a marathon runner. He ran, and everybody was cheering, come on, Langarica, come on, Langarica. And everybody's saying, man, he's going to get killed, this guy. And all of a sudden, there was this window. And the windows, they have bars. So you meant to actually grab the bars of the window and jump up. Okay, so the bull would come underneath you. So everybody saw the window, and Langarica was looking towards that direction. So everybody thought, okay, he's going to run to the window, grab the window, the bars, and jump up. All of a sudden, he runs. Energy from nowhere. From where? From cortisone and adrenaline. And it goes in, jumps against the wall, boom, knocks himself down, comes the bull, and he grabs him with the horns and he throws him over. Finally, they rescue him, and they said to him, "What happened? You were so close." And the drunkard Langarica said, "I saw 2 windows. And I saw 2 bulls. I jumped to the wrong window, and I got hit by the right bull." He ran because there was a bull chasing. So what happens is this: when you have a bull chasing you today, tomorrow, etc., 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 because the boss, because the work, because the traffic, because the children, because your wife, because your husband, they can drive you nuts, those individuals. Because of all those scenarios, your cortisol is high. When your cortisol is high, it stimulates a neurological response called fight and flight response. The fight and fight response is what actually Langarica faced in front of the bull. What did I do? Did I knock him over or I fly? Okay, so either fight or flight. Somebody attacks you with a gun and say, "Give me the wallet," and you actually have that response in you. What did I do? Did I fight him or fly? So there's actually a neurological response, okay, from the neurological system. And that response sends a message with those levels of cortisol. The message is, store the fat, we're not here to burn it because we are in a crisis, we need to keep it. There's actually people that cannot lose weight because they are stressed out. They got too much stress in them, too much issues with their children, too much issues with whatever it is, and they're holding it because the levels of cortisol are too high. Now, try to actually lose weight if you are a nurse working on 3 shifts and also at night. Notice this is a healthy curve of the cortisol levels. It's in red there. So you get up in the morning, ring, the alarm goes up, zoom, that goes the cortisol right up there. And then you're working through the day, you're driving through the traffic, etc. And slowly as the time goes and the sunset starts coming closer, your cortisol level meant to wind down. And then through the night is very, very steady, very, very low. Okay? Very, very extremely low. But what happens when I get at home and it's 11 o'clock at night and the light is still on? I'm still alert. Every time that I'm alert, I still have a level of cortisol. So if I am checking on Facebook at 1 o'clock in the morning, I am alert on it. My cortisol level is higher, then it's not going to allow me to burn the fat. So here comes the wimp in the morning. He wants to burn your fat. You've been doing so well. You've been keeping the window. He comes in the morning. The witch is not here. The cousin that is a gossiper and tells everything around is there. And in one way, you want to burn fat, and in another way, you're saying to your system, don't burn it. You're sending a contradictory message to your system. Are you following what I'm saying? So imagine if you are a nurse and you're working over the night. Do you have to be alert? Every time that you have to be alert, you have a level of cortisol that it has to be up. So a nurse will have high there and high through the night too. It will be high all throughout. And it is not uncommon for nurses to carry a little bit of extra weight and they cannot lose it. And they cannot lose it because the signal from a metabolic point of view is don't lose it. Don't let go. Have you heard of those when they say early to bed to lose weight? Early to bed to lose weight. If you want to lose weight, you need to go early to bed. That's actually one of the keys because of the cousin of the witch that is going to impair you. Just a little note, side note, if you work on a computer, there is actually an app that turns your computer light radiation yellow at a certain time of the day. You just program it, you just download the app, you install it in your computer, and at a certain time of the day, rather than actually giving a blue light, gives more like a yellow light that is preparing you to unwind and go to sleep. Of course, if you're still at 3 o'clock in the morning up, it doesn't matter if the light is yellow, okay? So just be aware of that. So notice what happens. By 6 o'clock, you're meant to start going down on cortisol. What is at 6 o'clock on TV here in your country? News. All good news. The biggest oxymoron is the first sentence of the person that is presenting it, when he says, good evening. And then he goes on to tell you all the bad news of the day. Do you think the bad news that you're continually hearing has any effect whatsoever on your cortisol levels? When you know that you're feeling threatened because, you know, this, that, or the other. Okay, I won't get into specific because then I'll get in trouble. But when you feel that you're getting threatened by terrorism, by immigration, by economy, by job losses, whatever, that has a psychological input in your cortisol levels too. So rather than actually being going down, it's actually right up again. Okay? The blue light of the television at 11 o'clock at night is actually preventing many from actually properly losing weight. When the birds stop singing, it's time to bed, if you want to lose the weight. We'll continue in the next presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.